a lot of anxiety treatments. If you find that you react to certain smells, or if there's additives or scents or things in supplements, and you're looking for relief with your anxiety, or you're trying to sleep better or improve your mood, but you're finding that you're limited in what you can take because you seem to be reacting. So I'm going to give you two strategies that you can try, and hopefully that will help you have some success and have some relief. Before we jump into solutions, I want to talk about a few signs that you might be reacting to a supplement or food that you're taking. And I think it's really important to talk about this because we all react to things slightly differently. And it may be that you're taking something that could actually be making your symptoms worse. And if you don't realize that that's happening, it could be an obstacle to you feeling well and feeling like yourself. So generally speaking, I like to always start one thing at a time, because then you have a better idea of what did what, versus if you start a handful of supplements all at once, if you have a positive reaction, you don't know what actually did it or if it's all of them working together. And if you have a negative reaction, you don't know which one caused it. And so you're kind of stuck in a sense. So the first step is to try adding things one at a time and look for any sort of a reaction. And so typical allergy reactions or sensitivity reactions may be if you feel like you get itchy skin, or if your anxiety gets worse, or if you get a headache, or if you feel shortness of breath, or if you get a skin rash or digestive upset, or anything for you that feels like a symptom or feels like a problem. If that happens, we have to then figure out, was it a cause and effect? Was it that I took this plant and had this reaction? Or could it have been something called a delayed sensitivity reaction? And those are tricky. So what can happen is when we take something, whether it's a food or a supplement or a medication, we can have different types of responses to it. So one is an allergic response called IgE. IgE refers to an immunoglobulin type that the body releases during an immediate or more anaphylactic reaction. So this may be somebody eats a peanut and they immediately feel their throat closing, or they take a certain vitamin and they get a histamine reaction and they're covered in hives. That's an IgE reaction. And if you go to an allergist, oftentimes they'll do something called a RAST test or a skin prick test to figure out what kinds of proteins or environmental factors may be causing that kind of a reaction. But then there's something called an IgG, which is a delayed hypersensitivity reaction. So it may be that you have a cup of yogurt on Monday and then you get congestion in your sinuses on Wednesday. But maybe on Wednesday you also took a turmeric capsule because you heard that turmeric is anti-inflammatory and good for anxiety. And then you got the congestion and you might think it's the turmeric, but it's actually the cup of yogurt from a couple days prior. So the delayed hypersensitivity can make it a little bit tricky. And so when you're trying things out, again, try to keep as many variables consistent as possible and give it a few days until you can really assess to make sure that that was what you thought it was. Okay, so let's talk about what do you do if you feel like you react to a lot of scents or supplements. And the first step is to, if you're gonna try using something new, is to baby dose it. And when I talk about baby dosing, we can baby dose as small as humanly possible. And so that may mean for you that instead of taking a homeopathic remedy that you just smell, the homeopathic remedy, it may mean instead of eating a new type of food that you actually put a little bit of the food on your skin and look for a rash. A good place to test topicals, so if you are wondering if you're allergic to turmeric or if you're allergic to blueberries or dairy, you can, in some instances, put a little bit of the substance on the inner part of your arm. We call this the antecubital fossa. And so you can open the capsule and just rub a little bit on your arm and leave it there, and then see if you develop any skin irritation. And that's not the case for everything, but it's a good starting point, because if you react on your arm, then you can you can guess you're going to be reacting internally. So you can baby dose it by using external and topical applications, or you can baby dose it by taking a very small amount one time and seeing how you feel. So let's talk about Happy Sleepy Powder. Happy Sleepy Powder is my go-to favorite solution for helping with anxiety, and I use it all the time in my clients who are trying to successfully taper down and off of benzodiazepines. Happy Sleepy Powder is the formula that I used to help me get off of benzodiazepines, and I still take theanine every night. And if I'm going to go on a flight, because all y'all know I don't love to fly, then I'll take Happy Sleepy Powder with me, and it works super well. But let's say that it's new to you and you're like, wow, there's 5 ingredients in here and I tend to react to things. What do I do? So when you watch the video on my website about Happy Sleepy Powder, you'll notice that I suggest starting each amino acid one at a time so that you can gauge how you feel. So let's just start with theanine. So theanine, for example, is typically dispensed in 100 to 200 milligram capsules. You could also get theanine as a powder, and it doesn't taste bad. It's pretty neutral and it dissolves well in water. So what you could do with the theanine, if you're tending towards being very sensitive to things, is simply open up the capsule and just put a teeny little bit in some water, drink lots of water with it, and just see if anything happens. And then slowly work your way up and see how you feel. If you feel well with that, then you can move on to the next item. The second thing is if you feel like I'm really just reluctant to take anything and I'm looking for solutions where I don't have to put any more supplements or scents or oils in or on my body, then using vagus nerve tonification strategies can be so useful and so helpful because you're learning how to work with your own body. I have a ton of information about the vagus nerve on my website, and so make sure to check it out. There's a free blog there where you can learn about it. But in short, your vagus nerve is the dial for your autonomic nervous system. When the vagus nerve dial is turned up, you will feel more relaxed because the vagus nerve, when turned up, will shift you into what's called a parasympathetic state. You may have heard of that as called the rest and digest state. When your vagus nerve is turned down, on the other hand, and it's not as active, your nervous system will shift into a state called autonomic stimulation, autonomic activation, autonomic overdrive. And another term for this is sympathetic, fight, flight, freeze, right? So if you're stressed, if you're anxious, if you're having a hard time relaxing and going to sleep or meditating, and you're reluctant to take supplements or medications, then working directly with this volume switch can make a huge impact. And so check out the blog that I have written for you. I'll try to include the link in the reply to this video, and that may be a really good place to start. So this has been Dr. Nicole, and I got some questions here in the group about what do I do if I'm allergic to or sensitive to supplements? Is there a way that I can figure out how I'm going to react? And we talked a little bit about that. And we talked about baby steps towards adding new things to your protocol. We talked about external strategies to try to limit on doing experimental tests by just taking it orally. And then we just finished up by talking about what you can do to help relieve stress and anxiety that doesn't involve taking any sort of a supplement or a pill. I love answering questions, and so keep them coming, and I'll do my very best to get to you. And so thank you for being here. I honor you. I'll see you later.